Hello, in a recent video I had a comment that asked, how do you control independent articulations within a DAW? And especially if you're coming from notation software and moving into a DAW, this can be something that trips you up. I know it tripped me up when I started moving from Sibelius into Logic Pro X, because within Sibelius or Dorico or Finale, whatever you write notation wise, whether it be a short note, a long note, a tremolo, a pizzicato, generally that's what it plays back to you. Or you write, of course, the equivalent thing that you'd give up a format and it'd play it back to you. But within a DAW, that is not the case. You're writing in MIDI and there's stuff you have to do behind the door to switch from a long to a short to a tremolo. And so that's what we're going to be covering in this video, different techniques and ways of doing it within Logic Pro X. So let's get started with technique number one, and the one I would recommend the most. So we've got a couple of different examples here. I'm going to start with Spitfire Audio solo strings, just because we've got lots of choice here. And so as you can see, this is a patch or a library, and we have multiple articulations. We've got longs, we've got shorts, pizzicato, tremolos, and for example, I've got pizz selected. If I was to play it, it will play that back to me. But now if I want to change it to a short without me having to physically click it with a mouse button, how are we going to do that? Well, technique number one, articulation sets. I absolutely love these. These were a great added feature to Logic Pro X. You can find those over to the left under track, right at the bottom there, articulation set. Now these you do have to create yourself. Logic has its own ones for products that are included within Logic.
As you can see in this example, on the top one we have the Studio Violins one. If you look at the articulation set, I didn't put that in there, it was already there. And if we actually click on it and go into Logic, you can see we've got all the studio horns, and all the studio strings, all the different instruments in there. And if we actually go down and actually create a MIDI region in here, and if I was to create a note, you can see that we have a wide selection of articulations already baked in, already made in Logic Pro X. You don't have to do anything except load the instrument. We'll even show you that if I put a completely new patch here, go over here, and we will go to the studio horns. Let's go, why not, 3-piece section, element section, and load that in. And we can see there, studio horns articulation is already preloaded. And if we go in and create some MIDI, we can see down here, if I create a note, we already have all the articulation sets. So a really good place to start. If you're completely brand new, you have got this available to you.
But stuff like Spitfire Audio, highly recommend creating your own. I've done a whole video on how to do it. I think the video is only like 5-10 minutes. It's pretty simple. I'll leave a link to that on the screen and in the description. But I've already made one here, and it's right down here, Spitfire solo strings, and this is the viola. So we can see that's all on. And now when I create notes, let's just select a couple of notes there, have them not play so loud, but we can see over here this articulation. And if I select this note, I'm going to have that spiccato. Maybe I want this as a pizzicato, maybe I want this as a staccato, and then we will have this as long progressive. So now if I play this passage, there we have it. You can see it up top, it's switching between the different articulations, and that's a very easy way, especially once you've created the set. You saw how long that took me to do after you've created it, and it condenses things down, because at least what I used to do is create multiple patches. So I would have a track just for my shorts, just for my longs, and that can get quite hectic when you're doing a full orchestral composition, but you've got 5 tracks for each instrument within that. It gets a little crazy. So this really helps and condenses it and keeps things consistent. Technique number 2 is key switches. So I'm going to turn off this articulation set, and you can see down here at the bottom, you might have to scroll down, especially if you're in Contact or Contact Player, because normally it looks like that. Scroll down, red, as you can see. Actually, I need to go even further. We'll use my mouse. If I click on these, we're swapping between articulations. So if I go right down to the bottom of my keyboard here, we can see that note triggers a different articulation, and whatever it triggers, it will stay on until you trigger another articulation. So let's have these all pizzicato. And then over here, I'm going to move to staccato. And let's play that back. There you have it. So key switches are an easy way if you don't want to mess around with articulation sets, or if you're in a different DAW of choice and you don't have that option. Key switches are an easy way, and they're quite universal. For example, if we go over to Sound Iron Hyperbrass and click on that, we can see here, I know it might be small, I'll try and zoom in, but you have on each note, it says there's a key switch, and if you want, you can change it down here to a different note to change that key switch. And again, at the bottom of the keyboard, we can see the key switches there. So key switches are technique number 2 for swapping articulation. Technique, I guess, number 3 is, like I already said, creating multiple tracks. So I could have the solo strings on this, just the shorts. I could create another track and have the longs. That's another technique. It does come a bit cumbersome, but I guess it is a technique and it does work. And then last but not least, technique number 4, which is actually what I used to do a long time ago, but one I don't really recommend anymore because we have these articulation sets, is if you go into something like Spitfire Audio, one of these products, there's a little padlock over here. If you click on that, you can lock it to program change, or I think it's CC32 LSB bank. If we select A, you can see down there's program change, or if we go into the MIDI, CC32 is bank LSB, which if I select that and then I lock this, I believe it's UACC. It's been a long time since I've done this technique. Again, I don't recommend it. And then if you select different articulations, you can see CC7 or UACCC7 and these different numbers. And so when we've locked it within here, if I go to 21, this should be long progressive. Yep, there you go. If I change that to a short, number 42, there we go. Play that again. So that's another technique using the bank LSB CC32. I'll leave a link to another video where I try and explain how you can get the most out of, I guess, your sample libraries, your VSTs, your instruments. But I hope that has helped. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video.